Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. On our first visitors edition of the season, our guest is going to be the radio play-by-play voice of the Gophers, Mike Grimm. Before he joins us, here's my view from Section 17. I'm ready for Saturday night, and I know you are too. I'm burned out from real life right now. Politics, pandemics, quarantines, masks, and on and on. I want my diversion from the real world right now. On Saturday, we begin what will hopefully be 9 straight weeks of Michigan football, knock on wood. I have no idea what to expect from this team. There are so many new pieces on both sides of the ball, and this is the first game. Still, I'm excited to see Joe Milton take his first snaps as a starter. Josh Gaddis is in his second year as OC. Everyone should have a better grasp of what he wants from this offense, and he should better understand his talent. I know there are questions about the defense. I'm not sure why, but I have a feeling the D is going to be better than some critics think. I also think they will have to carry us at times Saturday, maybe even the first few weeks while the offense finds its way. My guest today says this Gopher team is loaded with talent and potential. How good are they? As he said, Gopher fans will have a much better idea after this weekend. Up next on our Visitors Edition is the radio play-by-play voice of the Golden Gophers, Mike Grimm. So stay with us. Here with us on our show today is the radio play-by-play voice of the Golden Gophers, Mike Grimm. Mike, it's been a few years. It's great to have you back with us, though.
Yeah, no doubt. I love this rivalry. I love when Minnesota and Michigan play for the Little Brown Jug, and obviously with divisional play, it doesn't happen every year anymore, but when it does, it's something I know Minnesota fans look forward to. They haven't had that jug very often, so they keep their fingers crossed every year.
Everyone is excited because of the kind of year we've had, and, in the summer, the schedule comes out. A few days later, no, the season's postponed, and here we are, finally getting things underway, I should say, on Saturday night. And Mike, one stat all college football fans are paying attention to this year, unfortunately, are the COVID test numbers. And there were some media reports earlier this week that the Gophers might be shorthanded as a result of some recent positive tests. Is that still the situation?
Nobody really knows, honestly. This is one of those weird years that I don't think this is going to be one of those games. Nobody's going to know what's going on until kickoff.
Yeah.
from a Minnesota side, I think there's probably some hey, let's not let any info out because there's a new offensive coordinator. Let's be vague about everything. I think every team has had positive tests at some point from the summer until this first game on Saturday. How many the Gophers have, I don't know. Who's opted out? They haven't mentioned that. And I think it's all part of some gamesmanship. Of course, it's well known, Coach Harbaugh doesn't release a depth chart ever, even once or 3 or 4 weeks into the season. So, I think coaches are weird, and I think that they get a competitive advantage by being vague. I don't know if that's true. Whenever I ask coaches that I cover about, that player might or might not play, he might be injured, they say, well, it doesn't change our prep at all. And then I wonder, well, why do coaches then on the flip side spend half their day worrying about how they can make it hard on the other team? So it's to me, it's all gamesmanship, and we won't know. We really won't know until kickoff. We don't know for sure. Michigan hasn't released its starters. Minnesota hasn't released much info, and it's kind of fun. But I'll tell you, from a radio perspective, like me trying to get ready for the game, it does create a little bit of a challenge. But what's a little bit of a challenge? 6 weeks ago we thought there'd be no game, so let's see how it unfolds on Saturday night.
Well, what we do know is we get the season started off in a big way, national TV audience, coast to coast. And game day is in Minneapolis. Is that the first time they've paid a visit?
Well, interestingly, it's the second straight game TCF Bank Stadium will host game day. Game day, for the first time ever, visited Minneapolis when Minnesota and Wisconsin finished the season last year. The winner of that game was Wisconsin, and the winner, whoever won the game, was going to advance to play Ohio State in the championship game. So it was a huge game. It was a tie. As it turned out, Minnesota ended up tying Wisconsin. The Gophers had a 1-game lead heading into that weekend and then lost at home to the Badgers. So they hadn't, in the history of College Game Day, hosted the show on campus in Minneapolis, and now in back-to-back home games, 2 games in a row at TCF Bank Stadium, they'll have game day. Obviously, it's a much different circumstance. There won't be fans allowed. They're going to host the show from actually inside the stadium. There's a really cool area on the West Plaza that includes a small little miniature field with some turf there where the game day folks have liked the setup there. So that's going to be in the stadium because there's not going to be a setup where you can be on campus. Like last year, it was thousands of people showed up on the quad, which is a few blocks from the stadium, and kind of in the middle of campus, and it snowed, and it was a cool looking scene. Now, unfortunately, it snowed this week in Minneapolis. There's snow sitting on the field right now at TCF Bank Stadium as we record this. Obviously, by Saturday, the field will be plowed. Maybe it has already by now, but it was like 6 inches of snow in the Twin Cities on Tuesday night. So the good news is they don't have to worry about trying to hustle 50,000 fans in there, and it's supposed to warm up just a little bit. So and they have heating coils in the turf, so it won't be terrible for the players. But it's not going to be, it's weird, Mike. We had, I'm going to say, the last 8 Saturdays have been picture perfect for football.
Yeah.
And of course, on it snows on Tuesday, 5, 6, 7 inches. And I think at kickoff, it's supposed to be about 32 degrees. So it is what it is. Football's here.
Here in Michigan, Mike, we are well aware, as you know, of who P.J. Fleck is and what a tremendous coach he is from his time at Western Michigan. But talk about what an outstanding job he has done elevating Minnesota football in really a very short period of time.
Yeah, and you asked me about game day. I think that in and of itself, that they're now for the second time in as many games in Minneapolis, it tells you what you need to know about what he's done. When he got here, and again, he always comments, the work's never done. Like, there's always naysayers and there's always doubters. And that's especially true when you approach things the way P.J. Fleck does. He admits that he's not everyone's cup of tea. He knows he's a little wacky. He's a unique approach to it. He wants to project as the face of the program. For some, they're just waiting in the weeds to have him go 4-8 so they can say, see, he's no good. But here's what I'll say. Up to this moment, when he was hired in 2017, early 2017 for the fall of the 2017 season, Minnesota had a nice run with Jerry Kill and Tracy Claeys. Really good run, well-respected coaches, hard-nosed football team. So what I'm about to say, please, don't misinterpret that I'm trying to disparage what had come before, because what they inherited was not as good as what PJ inherited. So, the foundation here was built a little bit on Jerry Kill, who also spent some time in the state of Michigan. But when PJ took over, there was also kind of they were in the middle of they were a few weeks removed from where players were going to boycott the bowl game based on, some scandalous stuff that took place on campus that turned out not as scandalous as they thought. Anyway, that's a whole nother, we could do a whole podcast on that in and of itself, and it probably will be some show made on it. But the point is, when he got here, things were in a bit of disarray. And what he said that day, again, in his own unique style, and Minnesota is kind of a stoic state. It's kind of not flamboyant. They're Scandinavians in general that like to just kind of go about their business in a quiet, modest manner. So right away, people were like, whoa, who's this guy? He's promising sellouts. He's promising that he's going to elevate the program, that everything that they do, they're going to do to serve and give in the community, that non-football fans will become followers of the team, that college game day will show up on campus, that they'll play in New Year's Day bowl games. All this stuff he promised, and people were kind of rolling their eyes, some. Others, the diehards are like, oh, sounds good to me, let's do it. Well, here we are now 4 years later, and guess what's happened? They won a New Year's bowl game. They sold out the last two games last year. College game day's been here twice. People who aren't football fans have become fans of the program because his players visit the hospital, the children's hospital on campus every day. And now that has obviously lessened because of the pandemic, but on a weekly basis, you're seeing families tweet out pictures of Gopher football players in their room. And some of them are saying exactly what he predicted. We're not even football fans, but we can't say how much it means to have these players stop by and see our 8-year-old son who just, went through a chemo treatment or something like that. People are sending oars to hang at the stadium. I mean, so look, can it change? Could it flip overnight? This business can humble you quickly. There's no doubt. But what he said, he's delivered. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, and I'm sure people that are listening here that are familiar with what he did at Western Michigan are like, yeah, he won one game the first year, and everyone was like, what's this all about? And 4 years later, he's whatever it was, 12-1, and he was 11-2 here last year. And I think if everything goes right, they should be certainly in contention for the Western Division here in 2020.
Well, I think it's safe to say Gopher fans and all Big Ten fans are really excited to get the season started on Saturday. It's probably an understatement. It's just going to be very different, though, without the bands and the fans and all of the hoopla, isn't it, Mike?
No question. And I'm eager to see how it may or may not impact the game. It might not at all. Like, I watch the NFL games on TV, Mike, and it looks like it's pretty intense. It seems like it's pretty intense. I frankly think the quality of play has been pretty good. There's some pretty good teams. But I also have been I've been to two of the Vikings games this year where there's no fans. As part of my other job, I'm the sports director of the Minnesota News Network, so I cover the other teams in town as well and anchor Sportscast for our statewide network. So I have been to the two Vikings games, and I'm telling you what, in person, it is different. It is a weird, eerie feeling when you're in the Vikings stadium traditionally, and it's loud and it's sensory overload with everything they do with fireworks and all that. But they're still sending the fireworks off, but there's nobody there. I think there's 400 people there for the last game because they did allow, the state health department did allow some people in, which they didn't the first two games. So it'll be interesting, to see what it will be like and what the intensity level will be and what the communication level will be. And I mean, Kirk Cousins, the former Michigan State quarterback, who's the Vikings quarterback, has commented a couple of times about how, he usually is in the huddle screaming the play, making sure everyone hears. And now he's trying to make sure the defense doesn't hear. So he's talking under breath to call the play in the huddle. Now, some teams in college do the no huddle and it's signaled in and you don't have to worry about it anyway. But the fact of the matter is that is a discussion topic, that the other team, it's so quiet, the other team might hear the quarterback in the huddle. So it's going to be a unique time. And, look, we're in the middle of the World Series, and somebody's going to get crowned the World Series, and they have gone through, whether it's the Dodgers or the Rays, they have gone through so much. They've, been, in isolation during the postseason. They've had to be careful for months. Weird travel. They've been locked up when they're on the road, basically in the hotel, and not allowed to go out. So, and look, I'm not trying to, cry a river for these guys, because certainly they're well compensated. But that said, whoever wins it will have earned this World Series. People who say there should be an asterisk or it doesn't count, I disagree. And the reason I brought that up as a point of reference is, look, whoever ends up in the top of the heap in the Big Ten, whether it's Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State, Wisconsin, whoever it is, at Indianapolis that night on December 19th, knock on wood, hopefully we all get there and everything has gone well up to that point. People have been healthy. But whoever does it, through all these unique times, through surviving through COVID testing, through opt-outs, opt-ins, injuries, everything else, they will have earned, whoever's the 2020 Big Ten champion will have earned it. And quite frankly, if anyone says, well, it really shouldn't count or there should be an asterisk, they haven't paid attention to what these teams have gone through since last spring. When spring football was canceled, they couldn't be together in the summer. They're taking online classes. They're trying to, stay holed up in their apartments and their dorms so they don't catch COVID. Everyone has been through a lot. So whoever wins it, Mike, is going to be well deserving of the Big Ten championship.
I absolutely agree with that, Mike. Looking ahead to Saturday, again, we're just all very excited for the season to get started. For Michigan fans who are listening, let's talk about some of the key players we're going to see for the Gophers on Saturday, starting with quarterback Tanner Morgan, who's coming off a big 2019. He had 30 TD passes, threw for over 3,000 yards, and I think he was second in the Big Ten in completion percentage. He's a big-time player, isn't he, Mike?
He is, and it's funny because a year ago at this time, well, technically not at this time in October, we were already into the season, but the week before the season's supposed to start, let's put it that way, the week leading into the first game, people were saying, look, Minnesota looks like they have a pretty talented roster, particularly on offense, but we don't know much about Tanner Morgan, so we're not going to, we don't know where it's headed. Well, he went out and had this great year. So now it's a totally different thing for him. Now he's, as you mentioned, all those numbers, he was second team All Big Ten. He ran that run pass option offense to perfection on most days. So now the pressure is, hey, you're a 3,000-yard passer. You've got to produce. I do think it's a little different than when people go in and you've got something to prove and you want to show the doubters that you're pretty good. So he has to do it again. It's a what have you done for me lately thing. He is one of the best kids I've ever covered. Just a great kid from a great family. He has been through a lot. His dad has gone through cancer treatment here in the off season. They haven't been able to be around him much because of the COVID stuff. They're from the Cincinnati area. They're on the Kentucky side of the Cincinnati metro. In fact, interesting story with Morgan. He had committed to PJ Fleck when PJ was the head coach at Western Michigan. He did graduate in December, like a lot of quarterbacks do, so they can early enroll. And they had their early graduation party for him. They were set to leave the next day. The minivan was packed to go to Kalamazoo. And during the graduation party, PJ Fleck calls and said, hey, I just took the Minnesota job. I want you to come to Minnesota instead. And remember, at that point, there wasn't an early signing day, so he hadn't technically signed. And so the family jumped in the van the next day, and instead of taking a right in Chicago to Kalamazoo, they took a left in Chicago to Minneapolis. Never had been on campus before. So, so this is a kid that is all about PJ. He's a great kid. And look, when you have a little clone of the head coach at the quarterback spot, that's a good sign for your football team in terms of all being on the same page and to use, Flex vernacular, rowing the boat in the same direction.
Well, more great news for the offense was that Big Ten Receiver of the Year, Rashad Bateman, decided to come back. He's 6'2", 210, an NFL receiver, really, playing one more year of college football, Mike.
Huge news for Minnesota because it impacts everything. It's not just the 1,200 yards. It's not just the 12 touchdowns that comes back for Minnesota. He's the reigning Big Ten Receiver of the Year, by the way. He won that award last year as a sophomore. In fact, Minnesota was the first team. Think about all the great receivers that have come through the league, and I know Michigan's had a bunch at the same time. This is the first time, last year was the first time that the Big Ten, that a Big Ten team had the both spots on the first team All Big Ten receiver spot. Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman were both first team All Big Ten. That had never happened in Big Ten history. And, it's amazing. And, I know Michigan's had, some great receivers, Purdue over the years with their, with their run and shoot back in the day. And obviously Ohio State's had a run of receivers, but it never had happened before. And guess who does it? Minnesota, which for years has really not been known as a great passing team, but they got it done last year. And Bateman was obviously a big reason why. Well, now you look at it. Johnson's catching touchdown passes from Tom Brady, the former Wolverine, down in Tampa. So he is gone. So now you've got Bateman and then the rest of the group. And my thought is that there's a chance Bateman won't have statistically the season maybe he did last year, because I don't think any doubt without Tyler Johnson now on the other side to warrant some big attention, there's no doubt teams will have a game plan that will say, look, we're going to shift to safety to his side of the field. We might double team him. We might bracket coverage him. We might do whatever we can to shift attention toward him, which could lessen the production from a number standpoint. But I would contend when you do that, now you're freeing up stuff. And you have a guy like Chris Altman-Bell, who had 7 touchdowns last year, as the number 3 receiver on this team. He now obviously moves into the number 2 slot. And could his numbers now pop off the chart? I think they could. There's a tight end named Brevin Spanford, who has kind of been, he's a great specimen, great tools, big kid, can run fast, all the stuff you want in a tight end. But when you have a Tyler Johnson and a Rashad Bateman and a Chris Altman-Bell and a Muhammad Ibrahim and a Rodney Smith all on the team, every time a young tight end gets the ball means one of those guys didn't. Well, now some of those guys are gone, and now that tight end is there. So I would look at Brevin Spanford. You ask about names. I would look at Brevin Spanford as a guy who could elevate. And I answer that question all in relation to your question about Bateman, because Bateman's numbers, maybe they could. Maybe he'll pop off the chart and put up a 1,500-yard season. I don't know. But there's a chance it won't be as productive from a statistical standpoint. But because he drew all that attention, there could be 2 or 3 other players now that have their numbers pop off the chart, and the offense could be as good or even better if it's if everything would go the way you hope it to go. So yeah, Bateman's return is a huge thing for Minnesota.
And as far as who gets the carries in the backfield, I know Muhammad Ibrahim returns at running back, and he picked up 604 yards, 7 TDs last year. Is he healthy, and is he going to get the starting nod?
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, as a freshman, he had 1,100 yards when Rodney Smith got injured. So this is a kid that's entering year 3. He's played 2 years, and he has 18, almost 1,900 career yards. He ran for 160 against Auburn in the Outback Bowl it was this year. That's January 1st, 2020. It started off great, right? We thought, what a year we're going to have. The Gophers won on January 1st, their first January 1st bowl win since 1960. And then the year kind of went to heck, certainly from a national and international perspective. But yeah, Mo Ibrahim will absolutely, he's healthy. He's a team leader. Another kid that had committed to Western Michigan, and then PJ brought him to Minnesota. He's from the Baltimore area. And he's the clear number 1. And then behind that, there's going to be a bunch of young players, and quite frankly, none of them have proven themselves. And it's going to be fun to watch to see which one in that dogfight will be, number 2 and number 3. PJ has made it clear that he wants to, rotate. I mean, obviously, Ibrahim's going to get a bulk of the carries, 20, 22, 23 carries a game, but that still probably leaves 10 carries for somebody else, or maybe 2 other people. And as you said, the question is, he's not a huge back, and he's a physical, back, a violent back. So there's always the chance that, you get dinged up on a play, maybe you miss a week somewhere. So the depth behind him, there's depth, but it's very inexperienced depth and very unknown depth. And I think one of the fun things of this season will be figuring out, where that running back position after Ibrahim goes.
Well, we can talk all we want about the talent at the skill positions, and it's clear that Minnesota has a bunch of it. But none of it works without a very good offensive line. And more good news, all 5 starters are back. So that is huge, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, no doubt. And, it was interesting. They a year ago, again, heading into the opener, the talk was at how good that offensive line was. They had really gelled the last 4 games of that year, the previous year, 2018. And, they ran all over Georgia Tech in the bowl game in Detroit. They had beaten Purdue just a couple of weeks after Purdue had knocked off Ohio State in a big upset. They knocked off Northwestern late that year, and it really kind of set the momentum up. Since Minnesota beat Purdue in that game late in that 2018 year, I think the Gophers are something like 18-3. I mean, you think about that run, and it's all has been with Tanner Morgan, but it also has been part of a consistent effort up front. Now, heading into last year, everyone thought, yeah, that line's going to be great. They really struggled in the non-conference. I mean, the Gophers had to squeak by, a couple of teams there: South Dakota State, Fresno State, Georgia Southern. Now, as it turned out, all three of those teams turned out to be pretty decent. But that said, I think people, including myself, thought, well, this offensive line is going to be able to manhandle that. It didn't. They were very confused against Georgia Southern and almost lost that game. And then somewhere, it clicked. When Big Ten play clicked in, or started, it clicked in. They had big rushing games against Nebraska, as did everybody, against Illinois. I always love to take a shot at Nebraska just for the fun of it. It is one of my favorite places to go. That it's an amazing fan base. While they're not always friendly on social media, they are so cool in person. For Michigan fans that haven't been there, and I think that my two favorite in terms of hospitality, in terms of a welcoming nature, Michigan and Nebraska are my two favorite stops. Nebraska fans are so nice. Michigan fans are so classy. It's always fun. But that said, Nebraska fans are annoying enough on social media that it's fun to take a shot. And look, they could have a bounce back year this year. I mean, I think that they're due. Anyway, I digress just to get the proverbial shot in there. But the Gophers had big running numbers against them. They had big running numbers against Illinois. And then that opened up the passing game. All of a sudden, teams started to stack the box. That doesn't work. Tanner Morgan against Purdue goes 21 of 22. All right, well, then the next week Illinois comes to town and says, we better play a nickel, and Minnesota runs for 330-plus yards. So it got to be, that offensive line was the key because they could pass block, run block, do it all, and we'll see. Obviously Don Brown will have something. I'm sure he's watched the early games from last year where the Gophers' offensive line wasn't very good. And, we know Don Brown can, he's probably in his laboratory right now concocting some formulas that are going to try to confuse that front for Minnesota. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's going to be one of the intriguing matchups, no doubt.
But switching over for Minnesota on the other side of the ball, 5 defensive starters return. The secondary looks to be very solid, but the front seven will need contributions from a lot of new faces, won't they, Mike?
No doubt. And, I don't know. I think in today's game, if you're going to be strong, if you have to pick a spot on defense in an area, would you rather be strong on the line? Would you rather be strong in the linebackers, or would you rather be strong in the secondary? Obviously, there are arguments to be made for all, but I think in today's game, and particularly, in college football, being strong in the secondary might be the best area if you had to pick one, and they're strong in the secondary. Now, they lose Antoine Winfield Jr., who already has been named the NFC Rookie of the Month for September, and he's putting a good mark on it for October already. He also is playing with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady and that group down there with Tyler Johnson. So that spot is not going to be replaced. You're not going to replace what he meant. I mean, this is entering my 15th year now with the Gopher Radio Network, and no single player in my time, in my opinion, has had a bigger impact on winning games than Antoine Winfield did in his time here. He was here 4 years. He played 2 of them. He was injured 2 of them. And in the 2 years he played, Minnesota saw more impactful plays from a defensive spot than any other player from him, than any other player that I've covered in my 15 years. So you're not going to replace that. So now the question is, can you tread water? Can you keep, and again, to use PJ's vernacular, can you keep the boat floating while young guys are getting some experience there? The linebacking core mostly has to be replaced. They've got Kamal Martin with the Green Bay Packers. Thomas Barber was one of the all-time career leaders in tackles. He has now moved on to a coaching position. So you have to replace those guys. And then up front, same thing. You've got 2 defensive ends that were 3-year starters that you have to replace. Now, here's the thing. PJ's recruited at a fairly high level relative to what is usually done at Minnesota. So now you've got guys waiting. They've gotten some time. They've played a little bit, but they haven't played every down. And now the question is, when they get their chance, will they live up to the billing? Will they live up to the ranking? And will they be in the right spot at the right time? Will they make plays? The defensive ends especially, they have great athleticism, and they played a lot during pass rush downs last year, but not a lot of every down play. So now Boye Mafe and Asazie Tomewa. Those are the bookend defensive ends. Great for a radio announcer, right? Asazie on one side and Boye Mafe on the other. Both specimens, both likely future pro players, but both somewhat inexperienced other than, pass rushing. When it was 3rd and 9, those two guys came in. And in Mafe's case, lined up as a defensive tackle. Well, now his job will be contained. His job will be maybe not even to make a tackle, but to force the play back into the linebacker, all that stuff. So will they be in the right spot at the right time as inexperienced players, or will there be some lumps? And I think hopefully the defense can gain experience and while doing so can be effective enough to let the offense score enough points to win some games early and see where it takes. But yeah, the defense, there's no doubt question marks. There's no doubt holes to fill. 4 players off that defense from last year were drafted and are on NFL rosters. A couple of others were key players that are now, have matriculated on and are not with the team. So that's going to be a key spot, and how quickly those youngsters can come along and live up to the ranking will likely indicate and let us know whether Minnesota is a true contender for the West or not.
Well, final question for you, Mike, before we let you get away. Saturday's game, as we know, marks the 97th meeting. Hard to believe, but 97th meeting between these two schools in the battle to claim the Little Brown Jug, which the late, great Michigan radio play-by-play voice Bob Ufer used to refer to as the most coveted piece of crockery in all of sports. And I know it's been one-sided, the numbers tell us that, but it would be a great start to this season if the Gophers can hoist that trophy on Saturday night, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no question. I think both teams, right? I mean, it's a big cross-division game. I think when you look at it in the West, until someone can consistently knock off Wisconsin, I'm going to say the Badgers are the favorite to win the West. And in the East, to cover your ears in Michigan, Ohio State's probably the favorite, right? It is what it is. So what's that mean? Well, I think you could make a real strong case the next 2 teams nipping at those 2 teams' heels are Michigan and Minnesota. And guess what? They play on opening week. And the winner of that game, even though it's cross-divisional, is going to have a step up because, 1, it's a quality win, and 2, you're 1-0. And as weird as it sounds, in a season that has 9 games, 1-0 matters. And so the winner is going to have a leg up. So it's a huge game. And then, as you mentioned, from a Minnesota perspective, it is a coveted piece of trophy. The origins date back to 1903. And, Michigan fans, in a weird way, it's probably kind of old hat. They just keep winning the trophy. Minnesota's only won it since 1977 4 times, and never here since 77. Last time Minnesota won the Brown Jug, Little Brown Jug, in Minneapolis was 1977, and there's been a stadium built since then. 1977, Minnesota won that game at Memorial Stadium. The Metrodome was built. Michigan never lost a game at the Metrodome. Now TCF Bank Stadium has been built, and now with divisional play, it's not an every-year thing. And Minnesota had a chance in 2016 to win it late. And they thought they had a touchdown scored to win it. And then, the kid was down at the half-yard line, and the Gophers squandered a golden opportunity to win the Jug that night. There's been a couple of other close ones, a couple in the Metrodome. But, at the end of the day, Michigan has had its way with this. And so when you have gone that long without winning that piece of real estate on your home field, it would be a monster win. I don't think you can put it into words what it would mean for this fan base. It's unfortunate there'll only be 800 people at the stadium if that were to happen. If Minnesota would pull the upset on Michigan and win, it's a shame that there wouldn't be 50,000 people there to watch them charge the other side and pick that Jug up. But that said, it shouldn't take the joy away from. I guess I'm always leery to do live on-air math, but from 77, what is that? Is that 53 years? Am I right there? Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, it's a long time. So when you're talking about that length of time, if they could hoist the Little Brown Jug come Saturday night around 10:30, it would bring great joy, no question, to Gold Country here in Minnesota.
Well, there is a lot on the line this Saturday, and fans on both sides, Gopher fans and Michigan fans, are just amped up, ready in this crazy year to get football started. So we're all looking forward to a lot of eyes on this game because it's a coast-to-coast game. So I'm ready. I know you are, and we're going to have some nice fall weather, northern Minnesota weather for this, so it's going to be fun. Our guest today was the radio play-by-play voice of the Golden Gophers, Mike Grimm. And it's been 3 years, I think, 3 or 4 years since we had you on, Mike. The last time we played Minnesota, actually, I think 2017. So, as always, you're a great guest. We look forward to our next visit. And until we meet again, you take care.
All right, sounds good. I really enjoyed it. And, let's have a good game on Saturday night.
On Quick Hits today, Jim Harbaugh says his team is ready to go on Saturday night and we are healthy. Here are a few game day notes. The first meeting between these two teams was on October 17th, 1892 in Minneapolis. It was a 14-6 Gopher win. The last meeting was on November 4th, 2017 here in Ann Arbor, a 33-10 Michigan victory. PJ Fleck is in his fourth year as head man and sports a record of 23-15 at Minnesota. He is 53-37 overall in 8 years as a head coach. Last year, the Gophers were 11-2 overall, 7-2 in conference play, and tied Wisconsin for first place in the West. They return 8 starters on offense, 5 on defense. They had an impressive 31-24 victory over Auburn in the Outback Bowl to finish the season, and they ended the year ranked number 10 in both polls. Now, the last time Minnesota won the battle for the Little Brown Jug at home was on October 31st, 1977. Now, I know many of you weren't around or can't remember, but I remember it vividly. I can hear Bob Ufer's voice in shock as we were upset at Old Memorial Stadium. We went into the game 6-0. We were ranked number 1. Minnesota was not a very good team. They beat us 16-0. The thing I'll always remember is that all of the Gophers' points were scored by Michigan kids. Kicker Paul Rogan hit 3 field goals, and a pretty good back from Detroit scored the only touchdown, Marion Barber. To this day, it ranks as one of the biggest wins in the storied history of Minnesota football. Now, the weatherman says there will be snow on the ground Saturday, with temperatures in the upper 20s at kickoff. It will be cold, but dry. But do we really care? It's time to tee it up and play some ball. Next week, we have the home opener with our buddies from East Lansing. On Monday's Michigan Game Day show, our scheduled guest is Nick Baumgartner. On Thursday's Visitors Edition, we'll be joined by Spartan beat writer Graham Couch from the Lansing State Journal. So make sure you join us. That will do it for now, though. I can't wait for Saturday night. I know you feel the same way. I have no idea what kind of team we have, but we will find out fast. The Gophers are a very good football team. So enjoy the game. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Think victory, beat Minnesota. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!